Hey, welcome! Today I wanted to talk about Ganyu and Kokomi, since they have banners currently, of course. I will touch upon their current place in the game and how it changed since the original release. I mean, if it even did. Maybe Ganyu's still top tier and Kokomi's still garbage. Wait to find out. Anyway, I will try to help you decide whether you should pull for any of them. By association, I will also touch upon Ayaka versus Ganyu debate. First of all, a disclaimer. What we love the most. If you're pulling based only on characters' looks, personality, or how fun they are, be my guest. That's absolutely fine. Those things are as subjective as, I don't know, what color you like your underwear to be. It's your business, I don't want to know. With that out of the way, let's get back to the original question of this video. Is Ganyu still the best DPS and Kokomi still garbage? The short answer is no to both of those questions, but in fact, it's a lot more complicated and it truly depends. Let's examine Ganyu first. The thing is, Ganyu gaining the title of the best DPS in Genshin was strongly due to circumstances. The two most important ones are: 1. There just weren't too many good DPSs in the game and people for some reason ignored Xianling. And yes, there just can't be a Genshin meta video without mentioning our beloved chef. Anyway, the second reason Ganyu was overpowered is that we had Ventable Abyss all the time and her freeze teams were just abysmally strong. Doesn't mean it was the only good team, by no means, no. But using Ganyu was just so goddamn easy. Combine it with her having exceptionally good scalings, and the road to being hyped to oblivion was as easy as you accidentally pulling Kokomi while wishing for Dori. Very easy. Don't pull for 4 stars. With that said, is Ganyu bad now? No, Ganyu is still up there, she's great, but for natural reasons, it's hard to still call her the best. Why? Well, first of all, content is more diversified, so it varies. For instance, right now, freeze is great for the second half, but single target DPS is needed for the second. Besides, most importantly, now we have more DPS options. We got characters like Raiden, Hu Tao, Ito, Ayaka, and more. In my opinion, what makes Ganyu still great isn't necessarily her damage. It's, for one, her flexibility, since you can use both melt and freeze and even burst support option. Free-to-play friendliness, and finally the fact that she just can't be power crept, realistically. See, if they take your stamina, like in that godforsaken domain, throw it into the abyss, please. Hu Tao or Yanfei, rest in peace. If they take your energy, Raiden or energy-hungry characters like Xiao and Eula, rest in peace. So, what can they do to nerf Ganyu? It's either cryo-immune enemies, and sure, we have slimes or specters, but they won't do a full abyss immune to cryo. So, what else? Bow immune enemies? There are too many different bow characters, this is too much of a debuff. I don't think they will ever do that. Charge attacks immunity? This is also too specific, but I think more likely to happen than the previous one. But the thing is, Ganyu's burst is really strong, and in most of the freeze teams nowadays you don't even charge shot anyway, or do it sporadically. To sum it up, I just don't see a realistic way to nerf Ganyu to irrelevancy. She's a consistent DPS, who can also dish out a lot of nuke melt damage in a short amount of time if she's well invested. With that said, how does she compare to Ayaya? Is she worth pulling if you already have the Kamisato girl? If you're summoning only for the Abyss, then in my opinion, no. Either of those will suffice. Personally, I disagree with people saying Ganyu is better than Ayaka or the other way around. I think both are really close and it depends on the situation. To begin with, I think Ganyu is still more flexible. Ayaka Melt is a good speedrunning option, but you're basically tied to one team and you're without CC, so it's strictly single target, basically. Ganyu also has just more supporting capability, thanks to her passive and not being as energy hungry, so that's a point for Ganyu. Talking about speedrunning though, even though you can argue for Ganyu with Melt, Freeze Ganyu is not as good for speedrunning. Ayaka wins there by a long shot, so that's a point for her. They are both great in breaking cryo shield, but Ayaka is slightly faster if you can utilize her dash, so that's another point for her. Ganyu is ranged, which gives you more room for mistakes from my experience, and it can be useful when some enemies escape your CC. You can just snipe the leftovers without needing to run over to them. So that's another point for Ganyu. I can't really think about more differences because they both have great free-to-play / low spender options, and they also use almost identical teammates. Ayaka can utilize Xingqiu, contrary to Ganyu, for obvious reasons, and her rotations align better with Kokomi, while Ganyu's cooldowns align more with Monas and Ventis. So I really think it is close between them. The most important thing here should be how you feel about playing them. I hate the alternate dash. Why can't I toggle it off? Hoyoverse? On the other hand, while in freeze, you don't really need charge shots. Playing Meld on controller is a pure pain. Surprisingly, I don't have trouble on mobile, by the way. TLDR! If you're playing for meta, you don't need both of them. Although together they can cause an eternal blizzard that will freeze your enemy's balls off, I don't think it's worth pulling just to play them together. Unless, of course, you really like them both. Now, let's talk about Kokomi. When she came out, she was considered garbage. And no, Kokomi mains, I'm sorry to break it to you, but while I believe no character is surely useless and total garbage, she wasn't really good then. She was still an alternative to Morgana, if you truly had problems with not dying, but that was an option for people who already passed the damage check. In Taser, she wasn't much of an upgrade to Barbara Driver and by far worse than Xingqiu and Sucro's variant. Taser was and still is getting away without a healer because of how powerful Beido's and Xingqiu's damage reduction is. To this day, Kokomi isn't an upgrade to this team per se, but she's a comfort character, which I'm sure you've heard a lot of times, and well, that's true. With the clam set, though, she became on par with other Taser options, so now it all comes to the player's preferences. I think it's a great thing to have options. And also, comfort is priceless sometimes. The same can be said about Freeze actually. She's a side grade in general, but if you can't get away without a healer, and you will either go with Mona, Diona, or with Kokomi, Rosaria, the Divine Priestess is indeed an upgrade. Kokomi might be the best thing that happens to your account, but might also not bring much value. If you are on the fence about pulling, the first thing I would do is look at your Hydro roster. Maybe your only Hydro is Barbara and you'd like to play Xianling. Neither Kokomi nor Barbara are the best for her, okay, but Kokomi will still be better, and also she will have an insane value on your account overall because she will open new team options. However, if you, for example, have already built, Ayato, Xingqiu, Mona, Tartak, you might not have a need for Kokomi. Another thing I'd consider is how much you value healing. If you can get away without it in teams you would use Kokomi in, or for instance, you designed team with another healer like Shinobu, you also might not need Kokomi. Now, I didn't mention two things yet. First thing is, if you want to play Sukokomon specifically, first of all, weird flex, but okay. But second of all, yes, you need Kokomi for that. And no, I am not judging you for playing this team. It just always makes me laugh, you know, but it's a positive laugh. I respect you if we play this team. Anyway, the second thing I haven't talked about yet is dendro. I didn't mention it before because it's kind of hard to judge, to be honest. But she seems okay with dendro. Neither worse nor better for Hyperbloom or Burgeon than other Hydro units. I wouldn't pull her specifically for dendro. I also wouldn't pull her for theoretical synergy with certain other characters because everything is subject to change, and look at Raiden and Veido. TLDR, I think Kokomi is a good character. I don't think you will really regret pulling her, because you will always find a use for her. She's far from necessary, but also as far from useless. But let's say you like both Ganyu and Kokomi and can only pull one. Unfortunately, there's no easy answer here. I am keeping my Ganyu bias in check as much as I can, and I can't say one is necessarily more valuable than the other. If I wanted them both, I would look at my account and what it needs. Both characters are very free-to-play friendly and both are, I think, future-proof. If you need a DPS that will carry you with basically any content, provided you have both builds available, pull Ganyu. If you want a support character that is also pretty flexible and allows for more Unga Bunga playstyle, pull Kokomi. One thing to note here is that Ganyu requires more invested artifacts to shine if you want to DPS her. In freeze, even if you rely mainly on her burst, you'll still need to balance crit damage, attack, and energy recharge. Although with Venti she is easier to build because of his passive. Since Kokomi is a support and only needs ER and HP basically, she's arguably easier to build. If you're curious whether the constellations are worth it, they're not, on both of those characters. I mean, C6 Ganyu is a beast, and her C1 is pretty good too, but she is really strong at C0. It's not worth the money by far, you'll never need C6 Ganyu damage. As for the weapons, same story here, neither almost best in slot bow, as I call it, nor the Galactic Donut, as everybody calls it, is worth pulling for. Depending on the team, Kokomi's best in slot is rarely the Donut, and as for Ganyu, Hunter's Path outshines Amos in Melt, and although Amos is still the best in Freeze, kind of, in both builds the difference between a 4-star and a 5-star is so small that it's not worth going for. Especially if you lose the 50-50 two times. And obviously, Amos is on standard banner, which diminishes its value, which I think goes without saying. If you're going to pull, or already pulled for Ganyu or Kokomi, let me know which one and why, and with that I'm gonna end this video. I think it's obvious, but I'll say it anyway, nothing I said here today is personal. I am discussing the game only. Thank you for watching, and hopefully until the next time. Bye! To nerf Ganyu to irrelevance. I hate that word.